That was the sound of Michael Drake, and this is Through Black Eyes on WYMS FM Milwaukee. Michael Drake and a single entitled Jessica. You will be talking with Mr. Drake right now, as a matter of fact. He's here in our studios with us here at WYMS, and we're going to talk about the single Jessica, the music industry, and a lot more. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you for asking me, Greg. Pleasure to meet you for the first time.
Okay, start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, I'm a flugelhorn player, composer, writer, a father of a 4-year-old child, a husband of a 27-year-old lovely lady. I've been in the music business, probably about 15 years or so. Education varying from high school to about 2.5 years in college. And studying music all along. I got first interested in music probably around the age of 2.5, right around in there. And I was sitting on my father's bed, and he's a musician himself, and this was in Arizona, and he had a trumpet and a clarinet on the bed, you know. So we were sitting there, and he was playing these instruments, and that was the first time that I remember being introduced to that. So it was several years after that, in grade school, 2nd and 3rd grade, I think it was, when I first really got actively interested in music. And then it just continued after that. 4th grade, playing, 5th grade, 6th grade, started on a little bugle, you know, playing taps or reveille and all of those things, and then went up from there.
Did your father not push you, but did he encourage you to be musically inclined?
Well, it was the kind of thing that he never really said anything specifically, but you could feel it. You know, you could say, well, you know, if you want to do that, go ahead, but do it, and do it right, and do it good. You know, follow through with it. You know, don't pretend. You know, don't pretend. Be real with it, and just do it. You know, if that's what you want to do, go ahead.
Was he a musician himself?
Right. In fact, he played all over the country, clarinet and little bands, you know, wedding bands and party bands and things when he was going to school. He's got his bachelor's degree in music and a doctorate degree in education and psychology and things. So he's pretty educated when it comes to that, you know. I'm just into music. That keeps me busy, Greg, you know. Keeps me busy.
Okay, your single, Jessica, is getting considerable airplay on other Milwaukee radio stations. Can you tell us a little bit about how Jessica got started and something about your music?
Definitely. Well, Jessica, the song Jessica, originates from my little niece, my brother's firstborn, and sort of dedicated to her. And she's about 1.5 years now. She's just about as sweet as they come. She's just a real sweet little girl, and that's where that song came from. So she sort of motivated me to write the song. The impetus was there. So I wrote the song, and I had been writing, so I had quite a few other different things that I was doing, and I was at the time working with a group that wasn't really working out too well, and so I had left to sort of go on my own and write and arrange, and with the idea in my mind that I want to record, you know, and have some kind of a career in that direction. So I continued to write, and it got to the point where, well, now I'm ready to record something, because I think I have a song that I like enough to put out for the first time and use as an introductory piece. Jessica, this is a song that I would sort of like everyone to relate to with me, you know, because it was an important thing for me. So with that impetus, with that sort of direction in mind, I decided, well, let's get right down into it. So we started recording. So we recorded Jessica, about 2 or 3 different studios, parts of it here, parts of it there. And we did the final mix down at the Playboy Club down at Lake Geneva at a place called Shade Tree. And we pressed it. I worked on the album cover, had pictures taken, things of this nature. We went out to sent the tape to a factory that masters the tape. In other words, they take the tape that you have and then they put it on wax, and then they press the pressings. And that's basically how it got started, a thing like that. And I could go more into detail, but I don't know whether we want to or not, and all those specifics, it gets pretty involved. Ooh. with the way you record a song. We could get into that if you'd like to.
Okay, I'd like to talk about that a little later.
Okay.
At what point did you decide that, hey, this is the time to record?
Well, it wasn't like any one particular day. It was sort of a build-up over a matter of years, knowing that this is what I would like to do, which is play, and I'd like to be successful at it, because I enjoy it so much. And if there's something that you enjoy so much, you might as well try to be successful at it, So that's the basic philosophy. So as far as putting down to a point, specifically when, it really didn't happen. It was sort of a gradual thing, building, It's really hard to say. But there was a point when I say, now I'm going to record. Yeah, there was a day there, a year and a half ago, at the most, is when I said, now I'm going to record. You build a long time to develop your feelings about life and things that you enjoy, so they are clear enough and understandable enough to actually put down on a piece of wax, or vinyl in this case, so you can share your feelings with somebody. You can sit down and talk to somebody, tell them your feelings about something, but if you can't describe it, they won't understand it. So you have to wait. You have to wait until you can describe your feelings properly, not only with words, but then with music, before you say, well, now I'm going to put it out, and then you put it out, see. Sort of involved, but enjoyable. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. How would you classify your music, if you could?
Yeah, a good question. Well, some people say that it sounds this first cut here sounds a little bit like Chuck Mangione. Well, it does, in as far as I'm a flugelhorn player, and the fact that we utilize a certain Latin rhythmic mode in the bass, dum da dum dum da dum da dum dum dum, that kind of thing. Those two characteristics in themselves lends themselves to reminding you of Chuck Mangione. Okay, now the other things that I do, it's a wide variety. I write a wide variety of things, but everything that I write are all genuine inspirations from my life, things that have happened to me. So it's definitely very much my own music, and at times, as complicated as the music business is, there are always going to be similarities, because that's just the way it is. But this one, more than not, sounded a little bit more like Mangione than most of the other things that I've written, and that was another reason. I said, well, let me put this out, because not only do I like it, but perhaps some people will recognize it more than if I put out something pretty strange, really weird. So I figured I'd do that.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is because, as you probably know, in the music industry, all music everybody has to classify it as something. I mean, it's either rock or soul or rhythm and blues or pop.
Right.
Something is always being classified.
Sure. Well, this is sort of jazz, because we play solos, but it's not really jazz in the real true traditional sense of the word, where as they start the tape and everyone plays live and boom, and it goes, and it's totally spontaneous. This is more of a production type of a project, where you produce it, where you lay the beds, the basic beds, which would be the drums and the piano and say like the guitar. So you sit in the studio and you lay those things and make them accurate, and then you build on to that. So to say that this would be pure jazz, it isn't. To say that it's very commercial, it really isn't. But it's fun music. I enjoy it. It's real, honest, genuine music from my standpoint of view. It has a little funk here, a little jazz there, a little Latin here, a little rock here. Everyone's music is a little amalgamation of everything.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think all music is a combination of all different kinds of music.
It sure is. It definitely is. It has to be. You know, but the thing that makes it different is each individual, each musician like myself, a writer, I'm constantly having input into myself. Now, it's what I do with that input when I bring it back out, which makes the difference, which makes it then original, new, and different. See?
From the time you have an idea of a record in your head and until the time it's recorded and you hear it back, are there ever times where you say, "Well, isn't exactly what I had in mind"?
Oh, you're constantly evaluating it, reevaluating what you just reevaluated. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times. Now, there are times, however, when I can sit down at the piano, okay, and write a whole composition in a matter of minutes because the juices are flowing in such a way. And the same way when you're doing a record. Well, the way I do a record is inch by inch, piece by piece, and build it. And as we lay each different piece, each individual instrument on that record, we evaluate each track as it goes by. So all along the way, if we're putting the flugelhorn on, we'll lay a couple measures of it and say, no, that's not right. I think it needs to be a little bit here, a little bit this, a little bit that. Run it again. So I'll run it again and change it and shape it so that the end result is a total feeling, a total picture. Because when you're doing something like this, you don't want one or two things to be out of character. It has to all sort of melt together, like making a cake. Can't have too much sugar or too much this or too much that, because then what makes the cake is that blend of those ingredients, and that's what you strive for when you record, the blending of the ingredients of the different instruments, so that they complement each other, so that they work with each other, not against each other, and the end result should be Jessica. Boy, was that hype. Forgive me.
But I know, like myself, when I do something, you finish with a project and you're satisfied, but you go, well, maybe I need a little bit more here, or a touch of this or a touch of that. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, you do. You do. Even when you feel that you've done it all, you've done everything you can. I tell you the reason that is because we all grow. We're mature. We educate. We are letting ourselves being educated. Once you've done a whole project, like Jessica, whatever, I've done the whole thing, I look back and say, when I was doing that, I thought I was doing everything that I know. But now I know something I didn't know because I did it. And now if I went back, I would have probably changed this and probably changed that. It's always going to be that way because we're constantly being educated and constantly being made aware of things that just the project itself do to you. So things are going to change. But the most important thing that you strive for is to be pleased with it at the time that you're doing it. And that's a very important basic philosophy. You can't let that get out of your reach. Hope I'm not getting too wordy here.
No,
okay.
You're doing fine. What's the next record that we'll be listening to here? Winter's End?
Yeah, this is a little funky thing. It's entitled Winter's End, as you just mentioned. And it was, if you recall, about 2 winters ago, we had a very snowy winter.
Yes, I remember all those winters. I've lived in Wisconsin all my life, so...
All your life, okay.
I know about winter here.
We were just walking into the station, we were talking about how miserable Wisconsin weather is. But at any rate, Winter's End comes from 2 winters ago when we had all that snow, and I was out there shoveling away, and I said to myself, I'll be darned if I'm going to die shoveling snow. So I went out, and as poor as we are, I went out and we bought a snowblower. I said, forget this. We went into Hock. Once a year we buy something for $200, $300, $400, whatever it is, and spend the whole year paying it off, right? So that's what we did that year. We bought this snowblower, and it's through all of that frustration and other musical things that transitions and things that I was going through that sort of stimulated this next song, and it's sort of a bluesy, funky thing. I enjoy it. In fact, I open up most of my dates with this song because it's loose, it's sort of jazzy oriented. You should just sort of get off into it for a while and relax with it, and you know, I like it too. It's Winter's End is what it is.
Okay, let's hear it. Winter's End by Michael Drake. Okay, that was Michael Drake and the tune entitled Winter's End.
Yeah.
This is Through Black Eyes on WYMS Milwaukee, and we're talking with Michael Drake, and we're talking about the music industry and Michael Drake and his music so far tonight. And Mike, you do some local recording here in Milwaukee, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. A couple of different studios here in town. I recorded at Dave Kennedy's studio, Star Studio here in town, and done sessions, quite a few other ones, definitely.
And you also do some local nightclub work.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there's several clubs around town. I don't think we can name them, though, right? Probably not.
No.
Well, it isn't that important, anyways. But
Right.
but there's clubs around the city that will let you come in and play, and you can either play for the door or you can play for a fee if you.
What do you mean by playing for the door?
Oh, okay. Playing for the door means that you set up your equipment, you play all night long, and whoever happens to come in and pay $1 cover or $1.50 or whatever the cover is, you get the money that comes in from the door. So that's where that phrase comes, playing for the door. And you'll find a lot of Milwaukee musicians do that.
Not by choice, I take it.
Not by choice, my boy. I used to do that. Oh, but I don't do that anymore. I don't play. No, we play around different clubs in the city, and there's different types of clubs, of course, in the city of Milwaukee.
Do you play? I would guess you would play different music according to the crowd in the club.
Well, for me, what I'm doing right now, which is purely my own original music, I do what I do, and that's it. Now, with the audience, I will be somewhat responsive to where they're at, only in as far as what I like. In other words, if we're playing in the context of an evening, if we're playing an up tune and then another fast tune, well, then I'm going to feel like I'm going to want to take it down and do something light. And chances are, when I feel like I want to change the mood, the people listening, they want to change the mood too. So, yeah, you're playing to the people. You have to, because they are the ones that are listening to you, and they are the ones that are coming to hear you play, see you play. You have to play to them. It winds up being for you, but as well as for them, say.
Okay, what about, like, your single Jessica has gotten a significant amount of airplay.
Mm-hmm.
Many local musicians here in Milwaukee, I can only think of a handful, have really gotten noticeable airplay in Milwaukee. How do you go about getting airplay for a single? Do you go around to the station and just go, here's my record, listen to it, give it a play?
Yep. That's it. And if they like it, they play it. If they don't, they won't.
Is that cut and dry?
It's cut and dry. It really is, If they feel that what you have is something that they want, and that's the way it is in any business. That's why any business is like that. If you have something that somebody else wants and likes, then they will take it. Same thing with the record. You take your record to this station, they might not like it because they don't have that kind of programming. You take it to another station, they might not like it because they don't have that kind of programming. But you have to at least try, see. Now there are certain other variables involved with that. Some stations have what we call a very tight programming. In other words, they'll only play the top 20 tunes, okay? Stations like that are a little bit more difficult to get into because of the programming rules. Their programming says we got to play these songs because these are hits, okay? So that's fine. Those are a little bit more difficult to get into. In order to get into a station like that, you have to establish credibility. You have to say, okay, here I am. I've got maybe a dozen stations that is. This is an educational station I'm saying is. Here's a dozen or half a dozen stations that are playing my tunes, my material. Why don't you? You see. And then they might consider considering it. And then it just goes downhill from there. Usually they don't. But I find that here in Milwaukee, it's well, for me and for what I've done with my project here so far, they've been very, very helpful. I've been here for about 10 years. I'm not just somebody just coming off the street that nobody maybe knows. That has something to do with it. You have to establish yourself a little bit. I'm a little established, and so all of those things take into consideration. Some stations just play easy listening. Some of them all jazz. Some of them all rock. There's a variety of different types of stations. So in addition to the other things that I mentioned, the material that you have to know what stations it would be applicable to. So it's all very important. All very important.
I would also think that it helps when, like right now, this is your first album, I take it.
Right. EP actually is the actual classification of what I did. An album implies a full-length LP of a 12-inch. This is actually a 7-inch, 33 1/3 or EP.
Okay, but meaning your first musical venture.
Right, exactly.
Now I would think that the next time you go back to a station, they might listen to you more easily or be more receptive.
Well, this is true. This is true. It's very important because once you've gotten one foot in the door, as far as them accepting you as a viable, as a significant human being, and it's just about that bad. You're an insignificant, or you are a significant human being, because they're in the business of radio, and they don't. It's really hard for them to take out a whole lot of time for somebody who's just kind of toying with it, you know.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling going out for a job.
Exactly.
For a radio job.
Sure,
I know
you
that
know.
feeling.
Sure, you know, and it's a rough scene. So as far as that goes, gee, lost my train of thought. Where were we?
We're talking about getting the foot in the door the second time around.
Right, second time around should be easy. Only if they let you in the first time. If they didn't let you in the first time, forget it.
I would think that your single getting play on a number of stations has to help. I mean, word gets around in the broadcasting radio business.
It's been very good to me. I can't knock it. I've enjoyed it. Milwaukee's been good to me, and I hope that I've been good to Milwaukee by giving them something back. You know.
Are you surprised at the radio airplay you're getting?
Well, yes, and a little no, and I tell you why. Only from a purely educational aspect, because as long as I've been in the business, you sort of learn what will be usable and what will not be usable, see? And from that standpoint of view, I must say, no, I'm not surprised, because as I explained before Winter's End, I was saying that now I know that Jessica has leanings or will remind you, make you remind of yourself of Chuck Mangione, and in that in itself was purely from an intellectual standpoint of view, knowing that Jessica has a certain commercial appeal. I know that it would have more opportunity to get something on than if it didn't, you know, and it has a vocal. So yes, I am surprised that it's doing as well as it is, but on the other hand, because of the educational aspect of it, I'm not surprised because of just a guttural instinct feeling about knowing what is good on radio stations and what isn't, you know. Sort of like that, Greg.
Okay, you said you've been in Milwaukee for 10 years. Why not Michael Drake? Why not go to the Big Apple or Chicago?
Well, you got to ease into that, you know. You can't just arrive. I'm here.
I think many people have tried that avenue.
Yeah, they have. They have. For me, that's not the route. I want to establish myself, and I want to be somewhat successful before I go into a bigger city. LA, for example, New York, those are the kinds of cities, I think, that people want somebody who's coming in that has already got something going, you know. I mean, doesn't that make sense? It makes sense to me, because they're money cities. They're success-oriented cities. Maybe years ago you could go in there and make some noise, new kid out of town. But I don't think it's so much that way anymore because the business is not that hot. You have to have something going. You have to have something already happening for yourself for somebody to really take note. And that's really what I'm doing. I'm trying to establish credibility, establish my writing efforts, establish my knowledge of the industry and the business, and anyone should do that. Anyone should do that. And then move out as, your wings are strong enough to fly you around for a little while. So that's that.
Yeah, that does make sense because New York and Chicago are such entertainment capitals, and you have all the top names there. And plus, everyone that's trying to make it is also going there who thinks it has some kind of credibility. They're also going there.
It's too competitive. Too competitive.
Okay, what's the next record we have here? My Family. Can you tell us a little bit about that record?
Right. Well, the last song and this one here and the next one after that, all of these are tapes, studio recorded tapes of compositions that I made about a year ago of songs that are going to be on my next album. Now that's a mouthful, but these are not the recordings of them. These are recordings of the songs. Now, My Family, for example, this one here is dedicated to my blood family, my musical family, my cat, the family of mice that I have in my basement in the summertime, or whatever.
Go ahead, throw everybody in, huh?
Everybody in there, radio announcers, just everybody, and it goes through several different moods, and you, I'm sure, come from a family, and you know that a family is not always going smooth. Sometimes it's up and down and goes to the left and right and here and there, and it's tense and it's relaxed and it's loving and it's exciting. There's nothing more complex than the emotional variations in a family. So this composition is dedicated to my family.
Okay, let's listen to it. Michael Drake, My Family. Okay, that was Michael Drake once again, and a tune called My Family. You are listening to Through Black Eyes on WYMS FM Milwaukee. I'm your host tonight. My name is Greg Seegers. Michael, My Family. I noticed that the lyrics to your records are geared to things people experience in life, and if you listen to some of the popular music today, you don't find that happening too much.
And this is true. This is true. You find, I tell you, it's interesting because there's some money to be made out there, okay, and a lot of that money is being made is being spent, let's say, by younger kids who are sort of in the prime of their life, and in high school, and they're really feeling good about themselves and their bodies and things. And a lot of the music, it has to sort of reflect their lives at their point in time. And if you were to ask most high school kids and college kids what's on their mind besides school, you know what they would say. That's a pretty big part of their life. So there has to be a slot for that. There has to be a music that is at the same mentality level and emotional level that they're at. So that's why there's a whole lot of music like that, geared for those types of people that need that type of thing. Now, some of the things that I write, really, as I said before, they're from my own personal life experiences. So the words and things are going to lend themselves to a little bit different emphasis.
Okay, you have middle-aged people and stuff, and they have assortment of problems, health, midlife crisis, that sort of thing. You don't hear a record about midlife crisis.
Well, that isn't a very popular subject.
True.
You know, sex always sells. You know, you always hear that. I mean, it always sells if it's good. That sounds pretty bad, but but that's the old cliche, you know, and uh, middle age crisis. That's sort of a negative thing, and problems. They have records like that, but yeah, what can I
Well,
say?
yeah, I guess you don't really buy records to hear depressing things. You
No.
buy music to be cheered and entertained.
Right. Or they have so many ballads out now, sad ballads. Just to those songs are really for the people who have had a bad experience, and they need to know that somebody out there knows where they're coming from. And people listen to this song, listen to that song, listen to the words, and are moved by it, and relate to it, and that's what that music is for those people. So there's music for everybody. You know, you've got disco, and you got ballads, and you've got all the ethnic types of music. Music is for the people, and so there has to be types of music for every type of people. It's
Hmm.
just,
But why on radio? I don't want
you want to
to
zero in
chop
on
down
this?
radio too much. But
Okay.
on radio, you hear it's mainly dominated by disco, rhythm and blues, some talk,
Mm-hmm.
religious programming. Radio does not reflect the wide range of society in music. You hear it's mainly dominated by disco, rhythm and blues, some talk,
Mm-hmm.
religious programming. Radio does not reflect the wide range of society in music, and radio and television is where we get a large portion of our news and information.
Right. Well, I tell you where that comes from is that in essence, it's not reflecting the entire nature and the entire society equally. It's reflecting the entire society. It's reflecting everything, but certain elements reflect greater than others, like topics of sex, skin on TV. You can find something about everything on TV. They always say there's something on there for you, but be selective. Same thing with radio. There is something on there about concerning anything that you want to hear, but there's just inherently in the business there are certain topics that are just more popular and make more money. you know.
Right, because there's an overabundance of songs about sex and making
Sure.
love on the radio today and in records. And if you go to any record store, you'll see the album jackets reflect that very thing.
Yeah, very nicely too. It's incredible. They've really gone into it because they know it sells. It's a shame, but good stations like WYMS right here are looking towards the finer things. I think.
Oh, you sly devil, you.
Oh, sneak into that one. But it's true. It's true. It's one of those types of things. Sort of interesting how that all pieces together.
Hmm. Okay. Well, now, what about? We've been talking about radio and the industry. What about Michael Drake? Will we be hearing Michael Drake with suggestive lyrics, or what is in the future for you?
Well, about as suggestive as I get is your dreams are yours, my dreams are mine. You can make them live or you can let them die, and that's going to be on my next album. And that means a lot of things to me, not necessarily sexual connotations, but again, words are for those who are listening to it. They can interpret it whatever they would like, and you asked me what's upcoming now for me, or?
Well, in terms of lyrics,
Oh, yeah, in terms
do you
of
think
lyrics.
that suggestive lyrics and things of that nature are necessary to have a hit record today?
Well, it seems that way, It seems that way. In certain areas, well, let's clarify. In certain age brackets, in order to have a hit, it almost is inevitable that there's going to be some kind of sexual overtone. In certain age brackets, you don't have that. in the jazz field, the jazz hits, there's no sexual connotation, you know. In the classical hits, there's no sexual connotation, depending on what you're doing. So that's got to be yes or no, depending on what market you're going for. Yeah, country music, whatever it is. If it's just jazz, uh, it can elicit some kind of a response like that if you're being real bluesy and whatnot. But I would just say again, yes and no. It depends what field you're doing.
Okay, speaking of lyrics, you write your own music.
Right.
And how would a person go about composing his own music? Say a person who likes to write a lot of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could that person possibly write music?
Well, that's sort of an involved question. I'll sort of try to take care of it here. Myself, I've been learning how to write for a long time. In other words, in order to write, you have to learn certain things that are used, certain beats, certain changes, the blues. Okay, uh, like a builder will build a building and he'll use the same bricks to make this wall or that wall or the cement to do this. Well, when you're writing music, you have to get enough education inside you so that when it comes time to letting your emotions come out, you have the tools to work with to make the music shape. And then after a while, uh, it becomes one where your feelings just become the music. Now, whether or not a poet can write music or not totally depends on his knowledge. If he's educated, if he can write, if he can play the piano, and if he knows changes and knows different cadences and knows different types of styles and idioms of music. I know all different types of music. So when I write, I feel free enough so that whatever I write, I know where I'm going with it. I'll write a funky piece, a jazz piece, a ballad. I know a lot of things that have in each direction and in each different area of music to do when you're writing a ballad. So when you're writing, you're letting your feelings come out as honestly as you can, and then the mechanics take over a little bit. So in order to write music, you have to have a lot of mechanics, and you have to have a lot of feeling, a lot of soul, a lot of reason for writing. So pretty involved, but
It's not as easy as it seems from the outsider's point of view.
no, it really isn't, because it's a thing you got to work on for a long time to be really happy with the way you're writing and enjoy the kinds of things that you're writing. Sure.
Okay, what about recording a record? Cost. Is it costly? Is that a costly venture?
Sure, very expensive. Let's say this: out in L.A., you can rent studio time for $250 an hour. Okay, and we're here in Milwaukee. You can get it as cheap as $50, $60 an hour, but there's going to be a lot of things involved with that. The $50, $60 an hour recording studio is not going to be the same kind of studio you get for $250 an hour. You're going to get a bigger studio with a lot more mechanical devices, a lot more proven things happening for it. Where perhaps here somewhere in Milwaukee, if you paid that money, you would be coming across not near as many channels. It kind of a lot of different things, but it varies from 25 up to 250, $300 an hour.
Now, does that include engineers and personnel?
No, not
That's
always.
additional.
Oh yeah, because you got to pay for producers. Oh, it just gets crazy.
So putting out a record is not a let's go out to the corner dime store, huh?
No, it's not an overnight thought. It's something that you better look into before you jump into it, or you can just start doing it and learn if you're if you're willing to just dive in there nose first. You make some mistakes. We all do.
Yeah, but that's costly mistakes.
Yeah, you can. You can. Sure. Get some advice before you do it. Get some advice from preferably not somebody who owns a studio because they want to get you in there. Get some advice from a musician who's recorded. Sorry, studios here in town, but
Oh, they're still getting your money.
yeah, it's important because you want to investigate it from the proper source. You want to investigate it from the people who have recorded, not the ones that are doing the recording. So you can check it out that way.
Okay, this is a broad question, but what do you feel about the recording industry today in general?
Yeah, well, okay, as related to my own little small world, or
Do your own experience. That's all you can really go by, I guess.
right, exactly. I think it's an incredibly exciting industry. It's challenging. I enjoy recording like nuts. I just enjoy watching a composition take shape. I enjoy the challenge of financially getting it all together. Intellectually, I'm not worried about that because I've had enough experience with that. That's just a really enjoyable thing. And financially getting it together, getting it out on the radio, hearing it, it's just really an exciting industry to hear your music on the radio. And I really haven't heard my music on the radio that much. Everyone hears what I do. I'm so busy doing business. But that's an exciting thing. When people hear your music and get something out of it and enjoy it, gee, then it's all worthwhile.
It really must make you feel good inside to see people get enjoyment and pleasure out of music you've written and produced.
Well, it's a real dream. It's a real weird thing. It's hard to explain, but it is very enjoyable because everything that I write has gotta be very uh, honest and a reflection of my life and what I do. That's all of my material is, and most composers feel that way, I would hope and think. And when people are recognized for things that are reflections of their life and people like them, that's just icing on the cake. That's hip. That's what that is. It's called being hip.
What advice would you give some youngster listening tonight about going into the recording industry or has visions of being an entertainer?
Well, first of all, know that it doesn't happen overnight, and know that it doesn't happen in the span of 2, 4, 6, or 8 years. Plan on a very long process of education, a long process of soul searching within yourself as to what is important to you as an individual. Because when you're out there a musician and you're playing, you're out there saying something. And you're committing yourself to something pretty significant. Just like we're sitting here talking to each other. I'm saying things, but I know what I'm talking about. Now, it's a different thing. If you got somebody out there that's just throwing out something that doesn't mean anything, it's not going to mean anything to anyone else either. So there has to be some thought to it. There has to be an emotional maturity that comes, and the only way that comes is through living a little bit of life. And if you're 14 or 15 years old, I don't think it's going to happen that early.
The recording industry is a tremendously competitive field. Would you say that the chances of one failing are far greater than one succeeding?
Well, that's sort of relative. I tell you why. Because in my own estimation, I am very successful. Because I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm doing what I like to do. In comparison to, let's say, as you mentioned before, Kenny Rogers and his $14 million home, I'm nowhere, Jack. I'm nowhere, so I'm not successful. But within myself, within my own well-being, I feel good about what I'm doing, and that is at least a good stepping stone. That's starting. you know. Then it's up to you, or to me, after that, to become financially successful. And then after that, what else is there? Because you need to first become emotionally successful and satisfied with what you're doing, and then when you can do that, then the next logical step is, well, now I need to be financially successful and established in the business world. It's all sort of part of it. So yeah, I would say I'm very successful at this point, but I'm not so naive as to say that, hey, I'm here. I got a lot of work to do. I got a lot of work to do.
Okay, before we listen to your last tune, Desert Mind, what does the future hold for Michael Drake? What will you be doing in the near future and further future?
Okay, well, right now I'm in the process of re-recording these tunes that we've heard, besides Jessica, which is already recorded, the last two tunes and this last one on an album, which is just about done now. And I'm going to be sending that tape out to quite a few record companies that I know of and that sort of know of me, and I'm going to be shooting for some kind of a record label from a record contract. This is what you do once you sort of get your googies together, and to see if you can get a wider distribution of your material, because that will help your business establish it on a more financial, sounder financial basis. I've got another album after that planned, all ready to go, of material that I just wrote this past Christmas, and it is definitely reflects my Christmas holidays. They are jingle bells, things of that nature, but they're about a half a dozen to 8 tunes that I wrote in about a week and a half period over the holidays that reflect again my life, and very enjoyable. They're all happy tunes. I enjoyed them all. And that'll be the album after this one. And then I have a third album after that that I'll be anxious to get started with, of some other material that I've already started. I've got big band arrangements that I'm having written right now of my compositions that I'm going to be hopefully doing high school, college concert clinics, 18-piece big bands coming into perhaps high school or college situation and being a guest artist with their band, but I'll have my own arrangements, of course, all my own original compositions. I've got a couple years of work ahead of me. That's sort of what I'm doing, and just enjoying life.
Okay, Michael, it was very nice having you as a guest today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being had, as they say.
Okay, before we let you go here, tell us a little bit about this next song we'll be hearing and closing with, Desert Mind.
Well, that's a good one. Desert Mind, just that phrase gives you the impression that at times the mind can be void of any thought. And in the radio industry, what did you call that? Dead air?
Dead air. Right.
Dead air, okay. So
it's also called trouble.
Called trouble.
Right.
Well, let me correlate that with the desert mind, because at times you can be doing something and there is nothing happening. You draw a blank. You draw a blank, and this is sort of what that tune is about. I suppose it sort of reflects that, but it was sort of motivated through that kind of thought, and it goes through an interesting little bridge and this and that and the other. Desert mind, you know. Hope you enjoy it.
I'm sure we will. Michael Drake, Desert Mind.